Now let's talk to everyone's favourite whipping boys, the West Tigers. We've been very positive on them, but they're last. Their young star player wants out, and there's already talks that, Benji's not the go. I said in the pre-season and in round 2 that I thought the West Tigers were further on in their rebuild than the Bulldogs. I just want to use this platform to apologise. I got that very, very wrong. That was a horrible, horrible call, and I apologise unreservedly. The Tigers have signed a superstar next year in Jerome Luai, and I think Benji Marshall cannot be sacked for 3 years. Otherwise, you just start again, and you start again, and you start again, and you've gone nowhere. At least they can say, well, we've got some minutes into legs. Do you see anything redeeming or positive about the Tigers, Terry? Now, it's very difficult to say, but I need something positive for those long struggling Tigers fans.
Look, I engaged in conversation with Tigers fans a couple of years ago when Cameron Ciraldo was being toured around the Tigers Centre of Excellence and everything else, and they were saying, Ciraldo has to pick the Tigers, and I straight up said, and you can find, I found my Twitter account, I found my tweets about Ciraldo saying that if I'm him, I'm dodging the Tigers, I'm dodging the Tigers, right? And they're like, why would you dodge the Tigers? We've got the Centre of Excellence, we've got this, we've got multiple stadiums, we've got these players, our juniors, blah, 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 blah. And I said, mate, trust me when I say this, that you guys are further away than you think you are. And I actually had Tigers fans convince me that they were further ahead. And then I realised your Centre of Excellence is a gym with an office. Okay? It's on a field in Concord where they play rugby union. It's not at Campbelltown and it's not at Leichhardt. So it means nothing. These junior teams that won the SG Ball or Harold Matts or whatever it was and were pretty good in flag and were okay in the New South Wales Cup a couple of years ago, they've gone back down and you haven't seen that turnover of players come through. And the two players that you're most excited about this year that have come through in the Fainu brothers, they came from Manly. Mm. Now, I know Lockie Galvin's one of those players that is coming through, but he's also a Parramatta junior. I don't see it. Now, Jerome Luai is going to turn the needle a little bit for him, and Sania Taruva is pretty handy as well. But as quickly as they're getting players in, the star players that they signed, like Isaiah Papali'i, he wants to go. Stefano Uko-Itamanu has said that if he doesn't get picked for Origin 2 and 3, he's going to test the market, which likely means he's going to go. I can't see David Clemmer, who is probably the dumbest person when it comes to contracts in his career. I can't see him staying and extending at the Tigers. And I think, you're probably looking at someone like Fanua Pole, who's looked at his mate Sean Bloor and gone, that could have been me going to Melbourne as well, because they wanted me and I knocked it back. I don't know. Like the early excitement they had from Justin Olam and from Aiden Caesar and that early energy they got at the beginning of the year, it's gone. Olam looks terrible. I don't know. Caesar is suspended, but he was crap before he got suspended. You got to ride the coattails of Appy because he's probably only got 2 or 3 years left in him. I mean, are you honestly turning around and saying it's going to be 15 years since the Tigers played finals football? I wouldn't bat an eyelid.
I think you're right. I was very positive, and I actually wrote a really positive article a couple of weeks ago. I like what Benji's doing. He's putting the club and culture first. Papali'i said he wanted it out, and he flicked him. And I rate it. Now, if it had been a Nico Hines or a Mitch Moses who said they wanted out, obviously you put your foot down. But a back row, you walk and you sign someone that wants to be there. It doesn't look like anyone wants to be there. Now, I know they beat a lot of teams to Jerome Luai, and I maintain that's a huge signing because he'll be the 7, and whether Galvin's there or not, you got young Fainu. I think that has to be a Haas combination, one of those two, moving forward. Outside of that, going back to what you said about these young teams, yeah, okay, they won a comp, and they did it pretty easy, and they did it very exciting. But how many of these players translate? How many flag teams, that New Zealand flag team, whipped anyone who came near him for 2 or 3 years? And the Warriors didn't end up winning a premiership on the back of it. They didn't. I think they got close once. So it's not a one size fits all sort of. You got young kids. Most of them leave. Some don't kick on. There's injuries. So it's a really risky. I think the only way the Tigers can get out of this is that they stick with Benji. They say we're a proud club. They get a player of tremendous quality to come out and say, look, I'm not getting enough money here. I want to go to the Tigers. And they're going to have to find 2 or 3 freaks to just hit the ground running. It's just going to have to be one of those, oh, geez, he came out of nowhere. Like a Buller, but times 5. Buller's very good, and I still maintain he's their long-term fullback. But he's plateaued massively. And I don't blame him at all. It's the team around him. You know, they had wingers who were freaks. Barely crossed the line. Their halves are just churning the same. And Lachlan Galvin had a few really good games early on. Signed that big contract that he supposedly wants out of now. But in the last 4 weeks, he's done 3/5 of nothing. And Opie Coruscant beat the Sharks to a T. Like, he just beat them up by himself. He's been their best player. But he's a bloke that can't play 80 minutes. And he's a bloke who's, 30 or over 30 now. He's not 21 and beaten up. He's a bloke at the back end. I want to be positive. I like the signs and I like the culture, but this is another 5-year rebuild, and they've been in a rebuild for 10 years. I think it's very easy to blame what's left, and I think they should do that for the next season and a half. But at a point, you got to say, look, forget that rubbish. It's done now. This is what we're going to do. Benji's going to be here for 3 years. Yes, he's going to spend time with his family, which you and I both don't have a problem with. They've got to come out and back him. They've got to say that the club, you've got these fine new kids, they're the future. Luai's coming, he's a state of origin half. They have to convince the fans, they have to convince themselves. But right now, if you tell me the Tigers are playing in the top 8 this year, it's in flag because their Wests are coming dead last. This team are going to finish last again, and I don't even know where their flag team are, but I guarantee you they're not leading either because I know the top 4.
I'm pretty sure they're 10th.
So it's not been the positive signs I would expect. I still think they're on the right track, but it's a long, long track.
Yeah, the Magpies are last in New South Wales Cup. And their flag team's actually not too bad. Their flag team's 4th.
No, there you go.
But how many players, like Cronulla won the flag in 2018, I want to say? 2018 they won the flag. 2017 Manly won the last Toyota Cup. 2018 Cronulla won flag. You go back to that Jersey flag team there aren't too many players that progress. You could go and have a look at any Jersey flag team and the players don't progress through like you think they're going to do. Just that 17 aren't going to be the 17 that will play in the NRL in 3 years' time after that. I don't know what it is with the Tigers. Like, they've made the signings. I don't want to sit here and like bag them because I've done that to a T for about 6 years and it's just not fun anymore. But they had Michael Maguire, they sacked him, they let a guy interview himself and turn around and decide that he was the best candidate for the job, and then give the hardest job in rugby league. The West Tigers coaching job is the hardest job in rugby league, and they gave it to a guy with 0 experience who was meant to be coached and mentored by Tim Sheens, and Tim Sheens sacked himself.
Here we go. We tried to do a Tiger segment and it's just not to be. We'll try this again in 6 weeks. Please, Tigers, give us something to be positive about.